What if the most powerful move you could ever make in any argument was to say absolutely nothing? What if silence was not surrender, but the highest form of strategy? What if every time you walked away from a pointless fight, you were not losing, you were winning something the other person could not even see? What if the people you have always admired most, the ones who seem untouchable, unbothered, unshakable, what if their secret was not that they knew how to fight better, but that they knew when not to fight at all? What if your energy, your peace, your mental clarity was so sacred that spending them on unnecessary argument was the most expensive mistake you have ever been making and nobody ever told you? What if the difference between the life you have right now and the life you actually want comes down to one single skill, knowing when to speak and knowing when to be still? Stay with me, because by the time this is over, you will never look at an argument the same way again. What if the most intelligent thing you have ever done in your entire life was to say absolutely nothing at all? What if the greatest battle you ever won was the one you refused to fight? What if the moment you chose silence over argument was the exact moment you became truly, deeply, and powerfully wise? Sit with that thought. Let it breathe inside you. We live in a world that rewards noise, a world that confuses loudness with confidence, aggression with strength, and winning arguments with possessing truth. From the time we are young, we are taught to speak up, to defend ourselves, to never back down, to always have the last word. Society has sold us a dangerous lie, that the person who argues the hardest, the longest, and the loudest must somehow be the most intelligent person in the room. But let me tell you something that will change the way you see every conversation, every conflict, and every confrontation for the rest of your life. The truly smart person is not the one who always has an answer. The truly smart person is the one who knows exactly when an answer is not even necessary. Think about water for a moment. Water does not argue with the rock. Water does not raise its voice. Water does not insist on being right. Water simply flows. And yet, given enough time, water carves through the hardest stone on this earth, not through force, not through aggression, but through patient, quiet, unstoppable persistence. This is the nature of true wisdom. This is the nature of the intelligent mind. Now ask yourself honestly, how many arguments have you had in your life that actually changed anything? How many times did you stay up late, your heart racing, your mind spinning, rehearsing what you should have said, what you could have said, what you would say next time? How many relationships cracked, not because of a single catastrophic event, but because of 1,000 small arguments that nobody actually needed to have? How much of your life force, your precious, irreplaceable energy, did you pour into battles that were already meaningless before they even began? The cost of unnecessary argument is something most people never calculate. And that is exactly why most people keep paying it over and over again their entire lives. Here is a truth that cuts straight to the bone. Most arguments, if you strip away the emotion, if you remove the ego, if you peel back every layer of pride and defensiveness, most arguments are not actually about what they appear to be about. They are not about facts. They are not about justice. They are not about truth. They are about one thing and one thing only: the desperate, hungry, insatiable need of the ego to feel that it is right. The ego fears being wrong the way the body fears death, and so it fights, it screams, it manipulates, it twists logic, it ignores evidence. It will burn an entire relationship to the ground rather than simply admit, "I was mistaken. I did not understand. You were right, and I was not." The untrained mind is a slave to this ego. It cannot see the argument for what it truly is. It cannot step back. It cannot breathe. It cannot observe. It can only react, like a puppet whose strings are pulled by every provocative word, every dismissive tone, every raised eyebrow from another person. But the trained mind, The disciplined, self-aware, deeply intelligent mind, this mind operates from an entirely different level. The trained mind pauses before it responds. The trained mind observes before it reacts. The trained mind asks the question that the untrained mind never even thinks to ask. Is this conversation even worth entering? And sometimes, many times in fact, the answer is simply no. There is a profound and ancient understanding that has existed in the traditions of wisdom for thousands of years. It says that you cannot pour clean water into a cup that is already full of mud. No matter how pure your intention is, no matter how clear your reasoning is, no matter how carefully and beautifully you construct your argument, if the person in front of you has already closed their mind, if they are operating from a place of deep emotion, deep pride, or deep ignorance, your words will not land. They cannot land. There is no space for them. And the intelligent person understands this with absolute clarity. They look at the situation, they assess the terrain, they ask themselves, is this person genuinely seeking truth right now, or are they seeking victory? Are they open to reason, or are they armored by ego? Is this a conversation that has the potential to create understanding, or is it simply two egos preparing for war? And if the answer reveals that no real exchange is possible, the wise person does something that the average person mistakes for weakness. They go quiet. They step back. They simply do not engage. And in that single act of restraint, in that single moment of disciplined silence, they demonstrate more intelligence, more strength, and more mastery than any argument could ever have shown. Now, I want to be absolutely clear about something, because this is a point that is often misunderstood. Choosing not to argue does not mean you are afraid. It does not mean you have no opinion. It does not mean you are passive or cowardly or defeated. Those are the stories that the ego tells, because the ego cannot comprehend a strength that does not announce itself. Choosing not to argue means you have developed the extraordinary capacity to separate your sense of self from the need for external validation. It means you are secure enough within yourself that you do not need another person's agreement to confirm your own worth. It means you have understood something that takes most people an entire lifetime, sometimes a painful, exhausting, conflict-ridden lifetime, to understand. Your peace is more valuable than your point. Read that again and let it sit inside you like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples outward in every direction. Your peace, your mental stillness, your emotional balance, your inner clarity is more valuable than being right. More valuable than winning, more valuable than having the last word in any argument that has ever existed or ever will exist on this earth. Now think about the people you most respect in your life, the ones who carry themselves with quiet dignity, the ones who seem unbothered by chaos, the ones who can walk into a room full of conflict and somehow remain centered, calm, and clear. Have you ever noticed that these people rarely argue? Have you ever noticed that when they do speak, their words carry enormous weight precisely because they are selective about when they speak? That is not an accident. That is not a personality trait they were simply born with. That is the result of deep inner work. It is the result of training the mind, day after day, to observe rather than react, to breathe rather than explode, to choose rather than simply respond. The mountain does not tremble when the wind blows. The mountain does not shout back at the storm. The mountain simply stands, immovable, rooted, certain of what it is regardless of what rages around it. And every storm, no matter how violent, eventually passes, and the mountain remains. This is the quality of mind that separates those who are merely clever from those who are truly wise. Clever people know how to argue well. Wise people know when arguing serves absolutely no purpose, and they choose accordingly. There is also something deeply important to understand about what happens energetically when we engage in unnecessary argument. Every single time you enter a conflict that does not need to be entered, you spend something. You spend attention. You spend emotional stability. You spend mental clarity. You You spend the very life force that you need to create, to grow, to build, to love, to pursue everything that actually matters to you. And the worst part is, after the argument is over, after the voices have quieted and the dust has settled, you almost never feel better. You feel drained. You feel hollow. You feel that strange, heavy tiredness that has nothing to do with your body and everything to do with your spirit. Because somewhere deep inside, you already knew that the argument was pointless. You already knew it would not change anything. And yet the ego pulled you in and you followed, and now you are paying the price. The intelligent person learns this lesson early, or they learn it painfully and late. But eventually, if they are paying attention, they learn it. And once they learn it, they protect their energy the way a master protects their most sacred possession. Because it is. Your energy is your greatest resource. Your focus is your most powerful tool. And neither of them should ever be wasted on an argument that was never going to produce truth, growth, or genuine understanding. Let me speak now about something even deeper, the relationship between inner stillness and outer silence. When your inner world is chaotic, every external trigger becomes an excuse to argue. When you are not at peace within yourself, when you are carrying unresolved pain, unexamined fear, suppressed anger, the slightest provocation from the outside world feels like a personal attack. And you react. Not because the situation demands it, but because the chaos inside you is looking for an exit. This is why the deepest forms of wisdom across every culture, every tradition, every age of human history have always pointed to the same fundamental practice: know yourself, examine yourself, cultivate stillness within yourself. Because when your inner world is stable, the external world loses its power to destabilize you. Someone can say something provocative, and you can simply observe it without being consumed by it. Someone can challenge you, and you can calmly assess whether the challenge is even worth responding to. Someone can try to drag you into conflict, and you can simply choose not to go. That choice, that beautiful, disciplined, deeply intelligent choice, becomes available to you only when you have done the inner work. Only when you have sat with your own mind long enough to understand its patterns, its triggers, its habits of reaction, only when you have trained yourself to pause in the space between stimulus and response and ask, what is the wisest thing I can do right now? And sometimes, often, the wisest thing is to breathe, to observe, to let the moment pass without feeding it any of your precious energy. There is a quiet confidence that comes with this kind of mastery. It is not the loud confidence of the person who argues the loudest and longest. It is something altogether different and altogether more powerful. It is the confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are and does not need the agreement of the world to confirm it. It is the confidence of someone who has faced their own darkness and come through it with clarity. It is the confidence of someone who has learned, truly learned, in their bones and in their blood, that silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness. Silence is the place where real wisdom lives. So the next time you feel the urge rising, that familiar heat in your chest, that quickening of the breath, that sudden flood of all the perfectly constructed arguments you could use, pause. Just for one moment, pause. And ask yourself two questions. The path of wisdom is not always loud, it is not always visible, but it is always steady. It is always growing, and it is always moving, quietly, powerfully, like water finding its way through stone, towards something greater than argument could ever reach. Carry this with you. Let it become part of how you move through the world.